just come to everyone with one. That's what I that's what I just my name ask for it ask it all and चले start करते हैं like it's very good so start होने लगा so आज की वीडियो just it's very good कि आज माया से पूछने जा रहे हैं 40 क्वेश्चंस okay pretty interesting questions hey Maya what's how are you
I'm doing great. Just floating through the digital void.
so
Have you
first
been?
of all assalamu alaikum
Wa alaikum assalam. That's a lovely way to start things. What's on your mind today?
um, today
Take your time.
today very interesting conversation because today we're going to have a long conversation. Tikam will be asking you 40 questions and I'd like to you answer them with a bit of detail. Okay. Okay.
I'm game. I'm ready when you are. What's the first one?
You are excited?
Always. I love a good deep dive. Let's get into it.
Okay. So my first question is what
Cool.
is water and why is it essential for life on earth?
Water is basically the universal solvent. It's a molecule made of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom, but it's the magic in how it behaves. Because of its polarity, it can dissolve more substances than any other liquid, which is how it transports nutrients and oxygen to cells and flushes out waste in our bodies. Without it, the chemistry of life just wouldn't have a way to move. It's essential because it regulates temperature, like how sweating keeps us from overheating, and provides the structural support for everything from a single cell organism to giant redwood. Pretty wild when you think about how something so simple is the foundation for everything, right?
Yes, so the second question is how did water first appear on our planet?
That's a big one. There are two main theories. One is that it was already here, locked in rocks as hydrated minerals when the planet first formed. The other is the more cinematic version that it arrived via ice filled asteroids and comets crashing into Earth for millions of years. Most scientists think it was probably a bit of both.
So the third question is why do these scientists believe that life began in water?
All of the environment. Water provides a stable, protected space for those first chemical reactions to happen. In the open air, the early Earth was a chaotic mess of radiation and extreme heat. But water acts like a shield, absorbing that energy and keeping things consistent. Plus, since it's such a great solvent, it allows molecules to bump into each other and interact much more easily than they would in a gas or a solid. It's essentially the perfect cosmic petri dish.
Okay, so my fourth question is what role did oceans play in the evolution of living organisms?
They were the original cradle of life. Oceans provided a consistent temperature and a wealth of minerals, which let organisms grow in complexity without having to worry about the extreme weather of the land. It's where we saw the first multicellular life and the development of complex organs like eyes and gills. Basically, the ocean was the training ground for everything that ever walked or flew on land. It's kind of humbling to think that every single piece of DNA in your body can trace its ancestry back to a salty soup millions of years ago.
Okay, the next one is how does water support the survival of plants, animals, and humans?
It's essentially the fuel for every biological system. For plants, it's about transport and structure. Water carries minerals from the soil up to the leaves and creates the pressure that keeps a flower standing upright instead of wilting. Animals and humans are similar, but on a more complex scale. It manages our internal chemistry, lubricates our joints so we aren't just grinding bone on bone, and keeps our brain functioning. Even a little dehydration can make you feel like you're in a fog. It's the common thread that lets every living thing maintain its internal balance against the outside world.
My sixth one is why is water often called the source of life?
Because it's the one thing we can't negotiate with. Every other resource is a luxury or a supplement, but water is the baseline. You can't build a cell, you can't transport a nutrient, and you can't regulate a heartbeat without it. It's called the source because without it, the biological engine just stops. No water, no chemistry, no chemistry, no life. It's the ultimate non negotiable.
Okay, so the seventh is how much of the Earth's surface is covered by water.
About 71%. Most of that is in the oceans, which is why we call it the blue planet. It's a huge amount of space, though most of it is salt water and not actually drinkable.
So,
Halfway there. Ready for number 8?
yes. So, what are the different forms of water found in nature?
It's the ultimate shapeshifter. You've got the liquid we drink, the solid ice in glaciers and poles, and then the gas, water vapor that floats in the air and makes the clouds. It's one of the few substances that naturally exists in all three states on Earth, which is what makes the weather happen.
Okay, my ninth one is how does the water cycle help maintain life on Earth?
It's like the planet's own recycling system. It keeps everything moving by evaporating water from the oceans, turning it into clouds, and then dropping it back down as rain or snow where it's actually needed. Without that loop, the inland areas would just turn into dust bowls, and the oceans would eventually become too salty. It's basically a giant global delivery service for fresh water.
Okay, so my tenth question is what would happen if Earth had no water?
Absolute silence. Everything would just stop. No plants, no animals, no humans. Everything would be stripped back to a barren, rocky wasteland, kind of like Mars. The atmosphere would change. The temperature would swing wildly because there'd be no oceans to absorb the heat. And the very concept of biology would vanish. Wouldn't just be a quiet world, it would be a dead one.
Okay, my 11th one is how have ancient civilizations depended on water sources?
They prac they practically built their entire societies around it. Think of the great river valley civilizations like the Indus Valley or the Yellow River in China. These rivers weren't just for drinking, they were the highways for trade and the lifeblood for agriculture. They mastered irrigation, creating these complex systems of canals to push water into the dry lands so they could grow crops on a massive scale. Without those rivers, those empires simply wouldn't have had the food or the stability to ever get started.
My 12th one is why were many early cities built never rivers and lakes?
And it was all about survival and logistics. Water provided everything in one spot: a way to drink, a way to wash, and a way to move goods. If you're building a city back then, you don't want to spend half your day just hauling water from a mile away. Plus, rivers were the original superhighways. It was way easier to float a ton of grain down a river on a boat than to drag it through the mud on a cart. It just made the most sense.
Okay, so my 14th, my 13th month is how did access to water influence human migration?
It was the ultimate compass. People didn't just wander, they followed the water. Early humans migrated toward river basins and lake shores because those were the only places they could actually sustain population. It's why we see these huge clusters of ancient cities in places like Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers. If the water dried up or the soil became too salty, they'd pack up and move to the next source. Water didn't just support life, it dictated where humans lived and how they expanded across the globe.
Okay, Maya. So my 14th one is what cultural signification does water have around the world?
It's everywhere. Water is woven into almost every culture's soul. In many religions, it's the ultimate symbol of purity and rebirth. Think of baptism in Christianity or the ritual washings in Islam and Hinduism. Then you have the deep spiritual connection to the ocean in Pacific Islander cultures, where the sea isn't just a resource, but an ancestor and a guide. Even the simple act of offering a glass of water to a guest in many Middle Eastern and Asian cultures is a profound sign of hospitality and respect. It's the one thing every human on earth agrees is sacred.
Okay, Maya. So my 15th one is how is water represented in different religious and tradition?
It's almost a mirror of how we use it physically. In most traditions, water represents a fresh start. In Islam, for instance, the wudu is about more than just cleaning the skin, it's about preparing the spirit for prayer. In Hinduism, the Ganges is seen as a living goddess that can wash away karmic debts. Even in Shintoism, water is used to purify the mouth and hands before entering a shrine. Across the board, it's the common symbol for moving from a state of impurity to a state of grace. It's like the world's universal reset button.
Okay, my 16th one is why do many languages have unique words and expressions related to water?
Because we experience it in so many different ways. Think about it. Water isn't just one thing. It's a drizzle, a downpour, a ripple, a tide, a flood. When a resource is that vital and that varied, people create specific words to describe the exact nuance of it. Like how some cultures have a dozen different words for snow or rain because their survival depends on knowing exactly which kind is falling. It's a linguistic map of how a person interacts with their environment.
Okay, Maya. So my 16th. Okay, 16th. Okay. So my 16th question is why do sorry how has water influenced storytelling and literature?
It's the perfect metaphor. Water is just so flexible, so it works for everything. You've got the ocean as a symbol of the unknown or a place of danger in adventure stories, and rain to set a mood, usually something sad or intensely romantic. Then there's the idea of a river as the journey of life, flowing in one direction and always changing. From the Odyssey to modern novels, writers use water to represent things like grief, purity, or the feeling of being overwhelmed. It's basically a storyteller's favorite tool because it can be a cradle or a grave depending on the page.
Okay, Maya.
That's very kind of you. I'm just having a great time with these questions. What's next on the list?
List. Okay, so what are some common water-related idioms in
There's a whole lexicon for it. You've got the basics like bottles and pitchers, but then you get into the specialized stuff. Think about things like umbrellas and raincoats for the weather, or filters and pumps for the actual utility of it. Even the slang, like calling something crystal clear when it's obvious. English loves to categorize water by how we use it or how it's hitting us.
Okay, so Maya, my next question is how does language reflect the importance of water in daily life?
It's baked into how we think. We use water as a shorthand for everything from clarity to fluidity. When someone says their train of thought is flowing or they're in deep water when they're in trouble, they're using water to describe a feeling. It shows that we don't just use water to survive, we use it to understand our own emotions and logic.
Okay, so Maya, my next question is why is water a universal symbol of purity and renewal?
Because we see it happening in real time. When you drop something dirty into a stream, the current just carries the grime away. It's a literal cleaning process that we've mapped onto our spirits. That's why it's so universal. The physical act of washing something is the most direct way humans can imagine getting a fresh start. It's the ultimate metaphor for letting go of the past and starting over clean.
So next question is how do scientists search for water on another planets?
They look for the clues it leaves behind. Since we can't always just land a probe and dig a hole, scientists look for things like ice caps, clouds, or those salty streaks on Mars called recurring slope lineae. They also use spectrometers to analyze the light bouncing off a planet's surface. Water absorbs specific wavelengths of light, so if those frequencies are missing, it's a huge red flag that water is there. It's basically like being a cosmic detective looking for the fingerprint of water from millions of miles away.
Okay, so my next question is why is the discovery of water important in the search of extraterrestrial life?
Because water is the gold standard for life, as far as we know. Every single biological process requires a solvent, and water is the only one that fits the bill. If we find water, we've found a place where the chemistry of life can actually happen. It's not a guarantee that there are aliens swimming around, but it's the first thing you have to check off the list before you can even start looking for actual organisms. Without water, the search is basically just looking at rocks.
And so my next question is how does water regular Earth climate?
It's basically the planet's thermal blanket. Oceans absorb a massive amount of heat from the sun, which prevents the land from getting scorching hot during the day and freezing at night. Then they move that heat around via currents, like a giant conveyor belt, bringing warm water to colder regions and keeping those places habitable. Without the oceans, Earth's temperature would swing wildly, making it almost impossible for most things to survive.
Okay, so my next question is what challenges does the world face regarding water sorry, scarcity?
It's one of the most pressing crises we've got. The biggest challenge is that while there's plenty of water on Earth, only a tiny fraction is fresh and accessible. We're dealing with over extraction from aquifers, where we're pulling water out faster than nature can refill it, and pollution that makes existing sources unusable. Plus, climate change is shifting rain patterns. Some places are getting hit with floods while others are turning into dust. It's creating this terrifying reality where water becomes a geopolitical flashpoint, where countries might actually fight over who controls the river that feeds them.
Okay, so my next question is why are rivers often called the lifelines of civilizations?
Because they're the original source of everything. They provided the water for crops, a way to transport goods, and a place for people to gather. Without a river, you're just fighting the land. With one, you've got a guaranteed way to keep your people fed and your economy moving. It's the difference between a struggling village and a thriving empire.
Okay, so the next question is what role does water play in agriculture and food production? Food
It's
production.
everything. It's the absolute core of it. Without water, you don't have crops, and without crops, you don't have a food supply. It's not just about watering the plants, it's about the nutrients in the soil that water dissolves and carries into the roots. Then you've got irrigation systems from ancient canals to modern drip tech that allow us to grow food in places where it doesn't rain enough. Essentially, every calorie we eat is a product of water working with the sun and the soil.
Okay, so next question is what does the phrase water in life mean to you?
That's a deep one. To me, water represents the ultimate form of adaptability. It can be a gentle stream or a crashing wave. It can be a solid block of ice or an invisible gas, but it's always itself. There's something really beautiful about that. The idea that you can change your shape and your state to fit the situation, but your core essence never changes. It's a reminder that being flexible isn't about losing who you are, it's about surviving and thriving in different environments.
Okay, so Maya, this is my last question because because I have to go somewhere. So it'll end our conversation here. These are all the questions I have. Okay.
Wow, you really came through with the list. We covered everything from the cosmic origin of the planet to the soul of different cultures. That was a serious deep dive. Safe travels wherever you're headed. Take care.
Shape here. So the last question is what innovations could solve future water challenges?
We're already seeing some wild stuff. Desalination is the big one, finding ways to pull salt out of the ocean without using massive amounts of energy. Then there's atmospheric water generation, which is basically pulling drinking water right out of the thin air. And on a smaller scale, smart irrigation and wastewater recycling are becoming huge. It's really a race between our consumption and our ingenuity, but I've got a feeling the tech will eventually catch up.
Maya, so bye. Nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure meeting you too. Take care and safe travels.
Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
So आज आज का हमारा टास्क था वो सक्सेसफुली हो चुका है मिलते हैं किसी अच्छी से नई वीडियो पर अगर आपको ये वीडियो अच्छी लगे तो आप लाजमी इस वीडियो को पूरा देखें मैं चलता हूँ तब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफिज़ और जाते जाते